All right, we have trial attorney Brian Claypool, who is on the call this morning as we await testimony today. Brian, it's always great to see you. Thanks so much for hopping on the call.
Yeah, hi, Kelly. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. So I was taking copious notes yesterday. Quite a day of testimony between both Wade and Willis in this case. You know, the big question essentially, Brian, is when this romantic relationship started and the extent of any personal benefit as a result. Do you think there was anything yesterday in the testimony? I have a few things written down here, but I'm curious about your take on it that stood out to you that could be damning for both Wade and Willis as we move forward into day two.
Yeah, Kelly, the only testimony I heard on the first issue, which is when did the romantic relationship start, was from a former employee at the Fulton County DA's office. And on a credibility factor of 1 to 10 with this young woman, I think you'd give her a 2 at best. I mean, she was a terrible witness to prove that. She's a disgruntled former employee. She was forced to resign rather than be fired. She had no specific details of any kind of romantic relationship other than, oh, I think there was a hug and a kiss. I mean, I hugged some of my employees. I mean, we don't know the context of that. There was no follow-up. So I don't think that was persuasive at all. Didn't move the needle. In terms of the financial benefit that Fani Willis allegedly gets from hiring Nathan Wade, I mean, I believe that's weak as well. You heard testimony about some trips they took that Wade allegedly paid for that. Willis said, I paid him back. Look, at the end of the day, there's got to be some proof, Kelly, that even if there was some financial benefit, that somehow prejudices the trial for the defendants. And there's just very little, if any, evidence of that. I don't think there's evidence of an actual conflict of interest.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. During testimony yesterday, Wade admitted to being intimate with Willis during his separation from his estranged wife, even though he had claimed in a divorce filing that was not the case. There are a lot of eyebrows also being raised about whether it makes sense all of these trips were paid for in cash from a personal savings at Willis's home. What do you think Willis needs to do today to ensure the judge, the courtroom, the world at this point, that everything was above board, that she wasn't gaining personally from this relationship on the taxpayer dime?
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that, about potential lies by Nathan Wade and potentially Fani Willis as to when the relationship started. I mean, that might not go to prove an actual conflict of interest. I don't think it does. But in terms of optics, I mean, it's devastating for Fani Willis. I mean, it might not be enough to have her disqualified from the case, but in the court of public opinion, it could not be any worse. Think about this, Kelly. You're a prosecutor in one of the most highest profile cases in the country. You're asking 12 strangers to believe your story. And if those jurors have heard that she's not believable and that Nathan Wade is not believable in their testimony in this case, they will never be able to convince a jury of guilt in this case. And that's why I think even if Fani Willis is not disqualified, at minimally, Nathan Wade will need to be removed from this case. There's no way those two can cohabitate in a trial. And what does that mean? That means this case is going to be dramatically delayed or potentially gutted.
All right. And in some breaking news, Brian, we are learning that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis will not be taking the stand today.